Paul, we're back. An eventful Game Week 4, done and dusted with a quick turnaround to a full midweek schedule. How was your Sky weekend?
Yeah, not bad, Fergi. 100 points in both teams. Both my teams are exactly the same. So, 100 points. Pretty happy with the week. I was very close not to doing the Kane move yesterday, and usually when I'm in debate about something, I usually don't make the moves, but I did, and obviously I was quite happy with the outcome of it. I would have captained Dyer otherwise, but yeah, I was pretty happy with the outcome.
Yeah, same. I had 97, and I think Haaland's performance on Saturday kind of swayed me towards the threemium, I think, because I was having an R in for ages, looking at how he was going to play, looking at his potential expected minutes and all this kind of stuff. But I think I decided on Saturday night or Sunday morning, rather, I was lying in bed for ages, just fiddling around. Obviously with my Sky team, and I had a few different sort of scenarios, but in the end, I did Romero and Van Dijk. I was a bit concerned about taking out Van Dijk, but I'm not going to captain him over the next few weeks, so I was happy with that. Out for Kamara for Villa and Kane. So obviously,
you're unlucky with Kamara because he ended up on 3 points, but he could have easily ended up on double bonus. He was on 44 passes at half time.
Oh, never! I didn't see that. I was out yesterday.
So he picked up passing bonus tier 1 and got booked. So he ended up on 3 points. But if you're looking at half time, he already had, I think, a couple of tackles and ended up on 3 tackles as well. So you're unlucky, but he looks like a good pick long term.
Yeah, happy with him. Obviously, we've been talking every week, haven't we, about which which enablers. I think all the others have got a slight element of risk. In the kind of 6 million. So happy with him, happy with the points. And yeah, I've got plans. I've got enough money now to do Brennan Johnson to Fofana as soon as he breaks into the Chelsea team, whether it's Tuesday, next week, or the week after. I've got enough money for that. And Henderson just looked awesome again. We're going to look at some stats in this pod, aren't we? And obviously Henderson is looking good. So I think Alisson to Henderson is another one I got earmarked for a couple of weeks' time for those Forest captaincies. But yeah, quite happy. 97 points, 46 transfers, I think. Probably get Van Dijk back as well once this little flurry of fixtures over. But yeah, good stuff. Welcome all. If you aren't subscribed, make sure you subscribe now. Go on, do it. Good afternoon. Gordon Hamilton, Julian is in. Golden Goal Fantasy Football Podcast. Happy Bank Holiday all in England. It's actually in Wales as well, and Scotland. Parts of Scotland. I was discussing this with Paul before we went live. So, not just all about England, everyone. Come on now. Mark Daniels, Manchester, FPL Sparta. Hello, everybody. Matt Woolley, Steve Cheek. And I just saw Lloyd Hartnell, first time live, Tom's dad. Welcome, Lloyd. I was in Bristol yesterday for an afternoon and evening out, and I know the Hartnells are from Bristol, so I had a really good time. So my voice is a bit croaky. We were dancing around the Pop World at 2:00 this morning. So
I'm flying down to Bristol on Saturday this week coming as well.
Oh, you really? What for? Anything?
It's the first WWE pay-per-view live on American pay-per-view in 30 years in the UK.
I forgot.
And it's in Cardiff.
Is it really? I forgot you liked I forgot the WWE, didn't you? Oh, so you're flying to Bristol and going to Cardiff, yeah? Oh, interesting. Oh, maybe we can have a chat. Is that this weekend?
I would have mentioned before, but I'm in and out, so I don't think maybe on a Sunday morning I'll give you a shout.
Cool. Ian Parron's in, Ross Johnson, and loads of others. Great to have you all with us. And Martin Beasley said, had a good fiddle myself. Thanks for that, Martin. Excellent stuff. What are we looking at today, Paul?
So last week we talked about, thought it was a good cut-off point. This is when we would usually get the overhaul in the season. So 4 bits of data, total points overall, see if there's any surprises in there. Bonus points overall, value players, so player total points per game per million. And this is for players that have played all 4 games, give us a good data sample, and then look at the upcoming fixtures for the next 4 weeks. That'll take us up to the international break. I thought that'd be a good stage to look at kind of short to medium term planning.
Lovely stuff. So first, player total points. Erling Haaland, 49 points, top of the shop.
Yeah, I mean, coming into the start of the season, like looking at the top five, and you take Haaland out of that, you wouldn't have expected the other four in there ahead of the likes of Van Dijk and, big at the back we always talk about because you get the consistent points. So by the look, I think Trent's 57th for points, or was that for value? I can't remember. It was one of the two. I might have actually been for value. But yeah, few surprises: Rodrigo, Sanchez, and Gross, and Henderson. And the thing with all four of them is that they have really good upcoming fixtures as well. So Leeds are top of the hub fixture ease over the next 4 games. Brighton are second, and Forest are sixth. So there's longevity in picking up these players if you've already moved on to them, or if you're looking for kind of short-term daisy chain moves. There's still value in getting these players, particularly maybe Henderson for the long term, and those single game days coming up from Forest, but certainly Gross and Rodrigo in the kind of short to medium term for perhaps a daisy chain move coming off someone that's perhaps injured, or Bruno Guimaraes might be a good example. Yeah. He's missing the next game, and his stats haven't been great for this season because Shelby's been out as well. So maybe if you're still holding on to him, a move to Rodrigo or Gross as part of a daisy chain to then move to somebody else that you long term. It's a good viable solution.
And with Rodrigo, obviously, there's a captaincy opportunity potentially on Tuesday at Everton, and there's one again in a couple of weeks' time against Forest, home to Forest as well. So he could be a really nice differential shout. Do you think these performances of these players, particularly Rodrigo and Gross, I suppose, are the two we're looking at? Because if you look at Luis Diaz, we probably know what what we're getting with him. Mitrovic is just an animal. I think again, and I know we mentioned it last week, but I think he looked incredible again against Arsenal. He was really unlucky not to get a couple of goals. That header off the corner was just all about him, wasn't it? Just dominating. He was absolutely superb.
It was a weird angle. He jumped up at a weird angle as well. It's like, you don't know how it generated.
Yeah,
but it still generated like some power.
Yeah. He did. So I'm talking more specifically around Rodrigo and Gross, who both interest me very much, especially because of their prices. Do you think they're kind of flash in the pans? Because we do have players, don't we, who sometimes start the season really, really well, and there's absolutely drop off a cliff. What are your personal thoughts on those two players?
Yeah, that's what I think, that I was highlighting them as daisy chain moves, and they've still got 3 or 4 good, like really good fixtures. And as the fixtures change after the international break, then I would look to move off. And this was the reason why saying I think I would only move to them if I was coming off a player that was injured or was out for a while. So we know that Bruno's going to miss at least one extra game, perhaps even more. So moving off him onto one of these players, and then looking for an exit point again, as you quite rightly pointed out, Rodrigo might be good for that captaincy for the Leeds Nottingham Forest game as well, and then looking to see when those players play on game day 1 of a fixture set, and then perhaps moving on to the player that you want longer term, whether that's coming down to free up funds elsewhere, or then moving on to somebody else that's got a nice fixture run as well. I think it will come to an end, those players, though.
Yeah. Saliba looks, I think as long as he stays in that team, looks absolutely brilliant. A brilliant player as well. Like, he's I don't realize how tall he was. He's a bit of a mountain. He's absolutely superb. Kane,
well, that was
sorry.
After not getting passing bonus in either the first 2 games for Arsenal. That's him picked up tier 2 in the last 2 as well. So,
and a goal and an assist as well.
Yeah, if he stays in the Arsenal team, which I think he will personally,
I do as well,
then he looks like a season pick. He looks like that. Not Fofana, Soyuncu pick from a couple of seasons back, where you're playing for one of the better sides. Leicester, I know you could make probably a mid-table team, but he was always picking up passing bonus. What I mean is you're picking up someone that's from one of the better sides of the defence, like from a defensive side, as well as someone that's picking up passing bonus on a regularity, and then get the odd attacking return as well. Yeah, I think he's incredible value.
It's quite rare as well you see a player like him, because he's built, he's a bit of a man mountain, but he's an absolute baller as well, and he is so calm and composed, knocks the ball around. His goal is absolutely sublime. He looks the real deal, don't he? Yeah,
Yep.
and I agree with you. I can't see how they can drop him. He doesn't deserve to be dropped. He's been absolutely superb, hasn't he? Another player from Arsenal who I'm interested in. I probably won't go for him because it's the price point you love. But Odegaard has been absolutely sensational. I thought
Yep.
again against Fulham, his feet are they're superb, aren't they? He's very very involved. Shooting, those little kind of slide rule passes, no look passes through through the defense. He looks really good, doesn't he?
I know this is a Sky podcast, but I'd been watching All or Nothing from last season, and I was just looking at his late runs at the box. And at the start of the Dream Team season, he was priced very nicely. So I brought him in based on watching All or Nothing, not watching the games from last season. But yeah, I agree. I think he's looked fantastic. It was almost the first couple of games he looked a bit afraid to pull the trigger.
Yeah,
when he got in. Maybe it was I don't know if it was maybe he was trying to get Jesus on the score sheet to try and build up his confidence. Perhaps he is a captain of the club, and I know he's trying to. He's obviously been picked as captain because he's a good influence on others as well. But yeah, incredible start to the season for him, and I'm not surprised to see Gabriel there as well. He was. I had considered doubling up with Saliba and Gabriel at the start of the season. Arsenal fixtures looked too good. Yeah, I actually don't know why I didn't. Maybe because it was Arsenal and I was doubling up at the back on them. But even at 9.1, he just looks every set piece he looks a threat.
And Rodri is in there again, kind of as expected. I think my thing with Rodri is I wasn't sure whether he'd get rotated with Phillips at all because there's a lot of money to pay for Phillips. Phillips isn't going to be happy, kind of, sitting on the bench. But as it started, no Champions League, no rotation needed. He started every game. Do you think he continues to play every Premier League game, or do you think he'll get an odd rest?
I think he'll get the odd rest, but not to the point where it doesn't make him value.
Yeah.
The thing with City as well is that he's there to churn the points, and you're very seldom going to captain him. You're going to captain Haaland, De Bruyne, or Cancelo, or if it becomes apparent, like longer term, who's the first choice defensive centre back partnership, then. Through their ability to get more consistent points and other means, whereas Rodri will pick up your 2s and 3s from your tiers.
Superb. Let's have a look at bonus points then. So we've already mentioned Rodri on 12. I've taken out the top bonus point scorer out of my team in Van Dijk, also got 12. What are your takeaways from the bonus points so far, Paul?
It was interesting because you've just said that you've taken Van Dijk out. And I looked at this before, I looked at the bonus points before I made my moves at the weekend, whether I was going to go the 3 million or whether I was going to make moves elsewhere to get in Kane. And one of the main reasons was that Van Dijk getting 12 out of 12 on passing bonus front was the reason for me not taking him, not moving him on, keep him in there. I know that a lot of people moved off Liverpool defence early. You can see that there's no Robertson on here. There's no Trent on here. So I could maybe understand if you were on the double up or the triple up, maybe why in Sky you would have moved off them before. But yeah, I think he's going to be one of the most consistent. He's going to be up there at the end of the season, isn't he? With your Salah, with your Haaland, etc. There's a couple of interesting players on here. Pascal Struijk, defender, 6.9 million, 8 bonus from tackles. Tyler Adams, you mentioned him just before we went live on air. He's maybe a little bit expensive especially when Kamara has got different
routes to points,
strings to his bow. So he's got like the tackles and the passes as well. Kyle Walker, I know a few people took a punt on him at 9 million at the start of the season. Again, it's been consistent. And then who I think is the best enabler, João Palhinha, is at the bottom there, 6.6. So good to see him on that list. Interesting, Yuri Tielemans on here. If you're looking for someone for the Leicester Man United game, perhaps he's the one that you move off. I didn't actually realise he was as cheap as 8.3 million. Perhaps he's the one that Bruno Guimaraes, if you're moving off and you're doing some chain move and you're wanting captaincy, is picked up. If Tielemans is in the starting lineup, he's been doing well for passing and tackling bonus this season, and we know he gets the odd goal as well. He could be the one to move on to there.
It's an interesting one that Thursday because I believe that's deadline day, isn't it? Thursday. But I think,
yeah.
And Leicester Man United obviously playing on that evening. But I saw some rumours earlier about teams interested in Tielemans. It's going to be interesting because I suppose if he wants to move, and they make him play, what's he gonna play like? It's a real strange one, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it must be the first to. I don't even know.
I can't remember. It must be the first to deadline day before.
I was going to say, yeah, it must be the first to make it fair to everyone, but then it's not really fair to everyone, is it? If Leicester and Man United's the only team that's playing.
And Maddison is another who's kind of linked up with other things. It's going to be interesting to see if they play or not. It's, I think I'm skipping that one at the moment. I don't know. We'll have a look a bit. Just back to Van Dijk. You said the reason you did it because of the bonus. The reason I went with him over Cancelo was that Man City, I think they get an extra fixture before I can bring him back. So City play on Saturday the 17th of September. I look to bring him back then on Sunday the 18th against Chelsea. That was what tipped me. But it's interesting how we look at, how we assess. I suppose it's an interesting kind of conversation in
I think we came up to I think we came up to a similar way of thinking, though, because you didn't want to lose the big hitters up front, or you didn't want to continuously use transfers on them.
Exactly.
And at the same time, if Van Dijk and Salah's playing, or if Cancelo and Haaland's playing, I think we both think that we would captain the attacker.
Yes, exactly that. Exactly. And both of them have got real attacking threat as well. Both of them are brilliant for passing bonus. So there's not much in between it. I think for me it was the fact that I may hopefully get the extra game. I don't expect Cancelo to maybe play all 4 games. I don't know. I think he'll play against Spurs, obviously, definitely. But I can really sniff a bit of rotation around maybe Villa and Wolves games for their big players. And he was brought off early on the weekend, and I'm not sure whether
that's maybe more like he was on a booking. That's just maybe more reason. That he'll start the following games as opposed to
exactly.
Not.
I like to think like that as an optimist, but the pessimist may be he won't particularly having a great game, and maybe they hold him off, and he's going to be, But hopefully, he plays the most. Anything else on bonus points, Paul? Henderson obviously looked brilliant. I think he's made, I want to say 23 saves this season, which is I think Alisson's made 7 or something.
Do you see his penalty save stats?
Yeah, 7 out of 10, isn't it?
7 out of his last 11 and 10 out of his last 19.
That is crazy.
That is unbelievable. Because I think the bookies have you score like 80% of penalty, 80% of penalties are scored. So yeah, that's nuts.
That's nuts. Yeah, no, he's looking really good value, isn't he? And I think I think I'll definitely bring him to free up the 1.5 million sooner rather than later. I was tempted yesterday. I was kind of looking at the games, and I think Liverpool again get that extra game before you need to bring him in on the Monday night. So try and hold off as long as possible. But yeah. Next up, we've got player total points per game per million. Henderson is joint top of this with Robert Sanchez.
Yeah, I think the only thing I think that put people off Sanchez was maybe all the cheaper keepers were around that 6.5 price bracket, and he was a little bit more expensive than that. He did pick up a lot of saves bonus last season as well, but yeah, Brighton have had an excellent start to the season.
They look brilliant, don't they?
And yeah, they look fantastic. A few players we've already talked about, Rodrigo, Gross. It's not often that you see one of the big powerhouse forwards in this category. Now, I always mention that if you picked a team of all the best value players in the game, you'd end up on a 1-10-0-0 formation, and you would just be filled with all the budget enablers that are good prices. So you always have to factor in, scale up to factor in where's your consistent streams of points from attackers. But to actually have one of those on this list, albeit a small sample size, 4 games, and this is all players that have played all 4 games specifically as well.
And this is without man of the matches, because he would have had at least 2 as well, wouldn't he? Mad.
Yeah, crazy. Saliba, Mitrovic, you mentioned Mitrovic earlier on, could have scored in all 4 games now.
Brilliant.
Obviously missed the penalty in another game. So he's missed the penalty and he's still on here. Yeah, I think he looks fantastic. There's not too many players on here that we've not already mentioned. Luis Diaz is in here. Jack Harrison, another from Leeds, if you wanted alternative and you couldn't get a forward spot, and making that daisy chain move instead of Rodrigo. Eric Dyer at the bottom here as well. So he's been consistent. I've been surprised at the lack of passing bonus for Dyer. And Spurs have a tricky run coming up in kind of 2 or 3 games time. I know you're talking about, like, I don't know if you're thinking about holding him long term or not. I looked at Palhinha. Palhinha would have, I think he's just around the 30th mark on this, so 0.72 he comes at as well. So he has good value, just not shown on that list.
I'm tempted. I've got like a bit of a plan. Is to get Fofana. My team roughly, I think, how I'm hoping. We talk about having an overhaul team in place, or maybe not now, but in the future. I've got a bit of a plan, but I am wondering when get that fixture. So I haven't looked at the fixtures yet to see if there's like a suitable sort of up on point. But I do wonder whether Dyer to Mitrovic is quite an exciting move during that swing. Let's just have a quick look if there is a good hop on point. Friday the 16th for the captaincy against Forest could be decent, and actually Mitrovic then he goes on a bit of a run. So got Forest, then home to Newcastle, away to West Ham, home to Bournemouth, home to Villa. That's a nice run for Mitrovic, and he's 7.70. And I know that Dyer will have Leicester, Arsenal, Brighton, Everton, Man United. You can probably see 2, maybe max 3 clean sheets in there. Whereas Mitrovic, the way he's playing at the moment for shots on target, he's on pair. He just looks so dangerous. I don't think I've ever seen us. I say if I'm probably exaggerating, but these last 2 games just completely dominate the box. His headers are so good, and he's good with his feet. I really like him, and 7.7. I'm tempted to have a go. I think,
and they've had their run of difficult fixtures as well, right?
This is it.
So at some point in time, they're going to open up. Just now, Fulham sit, even for their upcoming fixtures, they sit near the bottom, so like 15th overall. So that means that they've already had Forest tough fixtures, a short run of more tough fixtures. They're going to go through an incredible run of favourable fixtures sometime really soon. He looks fixture proof anyway, but the fact that he's going to be playing against weaker defences every week, he's definitely going to be coming into my thinking, and
really like him.
Other Sky managers' thinking's coming up. There's a couple of things I was going to mention on value.
Yeah.
So as well as this podcast, there is a lot. I was going to say this isn't me doing advertising. Of course, it is me doing advertising. But on the hub, Darkish Jungle. So Carl Weeks does a weekly stats-based article on Sky Game. Fantastic read. I love those articles. But there was one that Luke Wilson. So I've just mentioned both of your Telegraph fantasy football podcasters on it. He did an article a couple of seasons back. I don't know if it was under his name, Luke Wilson, or if it was under FPL Equation, which is his Twitter handle. But if you go to the hub and you try and dig it out, it's an incredible article. And what he talks about is you take the cheapest available player base. So say, I can't remember what it is, 6.4 this season or something like that. But say it's 6, because it'll make the maths easier for me on the fly, because I'm not writing this down. So if you take the base of 6, so the cheapest team that you can assemble is 66 million, like 11 times 6. Yeah. So you've only got 34 million to play with. And it's how you use that 34 million and the value stakes to build up your team. And Luke does it's quite a long article, but it's excellent. And I would advise anyone that's interested in this kind of thing, working out how to best value your team and best structure your team, to have a read of that article. It's great. And it's on the hub as well.
Nice plug there, mate. Yes, I do remember. I think I edited it for him and published it for him. It's absolutely brilliant. It's called Building Team Value. It's mainly kind of FPL based, I think, but there's a lot of kind of crossover, and all the points are very, very relevant to all fantasy games. But yeah, it's right. I think that's how I've been trying to build my team, structure my teams this season, especially in Sky and Telegraph, is just getting the, like looking at players. I'll hopefully have Fofana, Saliba, Kamara, and Palhinha just in place. They're the bargain basement, but provide incredible value, and then you're able to kind of maximise, your point potential elsewhere while they're just knocking away, hitting in consistent tackle points, passing, odd clean sheets and that. And I think it's definitely the way to play in it.
So you're right. He did do one on FPL. It was called 10 Golden Rules for Building FPL Team Value. But the specific one I was talking, so I've read that as well, and it was excellent. The specific one I was talking about was called Sky Sports Fantasy Football. Which positions should you spend your Sky fantasy budget on to get the best return on investment? And excellent read for anyone interested in it.
Ollie, if you're listening, it may be worth digging that out and dusting it off and republishing that one, because it's incredibly relevant. Superb. Looking at the fixtures now then, from next weekend until game week 8, which is the international break. As you mentioned earlier, Paul, Leeds look good. So they're home to Everton, away to Brentford, home to Forest. Those next 3 are spanking, aren't they? And away to United, which could be kind of one or the other. Brighton, away to Fulham, home to Leicester, away to Bournemouth, home to Palace. And just right down the bottom, Wolves, Everton and Villa are down the bottom. But what are your thoughts on the fixtures?
Yeah, so a few things for me. One, if you don't have Saliba already, I think Saliba's one of the best, if not the best value player in the game. I know he's not top of the value charts, but the fact that the longevity and having an Arsenal defender and the passing bonus, I think that it's not too late to get on him. The point that we made on Nottingham Forest, so they sit 6th on the list after they play Man City. They've got Bournemouth, and then they've got those 4 single game days, or one of the 4 singles isn't a single, it's a double, but a Forest player looks like the best option on that day as well. And just for me, Henderson's the best value Forest player. I mentioned on pod a couple of weeks ago, Luke Williams had mentioned that earlier on the season, and it's definitely come to fruition. It's certainly because of all the signings that he looks like the one nailed on player that's going to play every single week regardless, and he's returning every week as well.
Just on Forest, so a lot of us are holding on to Brennan Johnson, 7.2. Got 1 goal so far. Also had a goal disallowed. Obviously, their start was incredibly tough, right? But this ease of fixtures, home to Bournemouth, away to Leeds, home to Fulham. So I'm purposely planning to maybe move him on, hit him on to Fofana, for example. So it could be worth holding on for these fixtures. Maybe not for the captaincy if you fancy someone else, but the fixtures are good, and as we know, Johnson last year was absolutely superb playing against teams of this ilk, particularly Bournemouth and Fulham, who he played against last year. Do you think it's worth holding on?
Yeah, and do you know who else I wouldn't get rid of? Is if I held Gibbs White, I wouldn't be moving on Gibbs White either.
I agree with that. He's going to play every game for that price, isn't he?
Or if he plays, even if he plays 4 out of 5, and as long as you had someone that you're more like, if you had your Henderson for captain, if that's the way you were going to go, then I would hold on to Gibbs White as well.
Cool. Any other takeaways from the fixtures, Paul?
I mean, just the fact that Leicester's fixtures don't look particularly great. I did mention Tielemans about bringing him in for the captaincy if you wanted. You don't need great fixtures for someone that picks up tackle bonus regularly. So maybe that's another reason why I was contemplating him. I've not made any plans yet. At present, if you were to ask me, I think I'm on nobody, and I'll just skip it. But obviously Casemiro, I think there's a question about Casemiro as well.
Yeah, look at that.
He's, for a defensive midfielder, he scores I think he's got a career 1 in 10 or 1 in 9 goals. So he adds outside goal threat as well as someone that you would expect to start picking up maybe more tackling bonus than passing bonus. But I think he's 7.4 or 7.5 as well. So again, another one that could be considered.
Okay, speaking of fixtures, let's have a look at the games this week then. So really exciting few days with, 5 game days in the next 6 days. Really good stuff. So Tuesday, tomorrow, Fulham and Brighton, Palace play Brentford, Southampton and Chelsea, Leeds and Everton. So lots of people have got Palhinha, lots of people have got Caicedo, Rodrigo home to Everton. So I mentioned him last week. I'm doing it in my B team, which is a bit of a mess at the moment. I went big at the back, so that was gone a bit. That was gone a bit awry. But I do think Everton have tightened up. And while I think, Leeds and Rodrigo look pretty good, they look pretty tough against Brighton on the weekend. I think Everton are looking quite tight. They're not conceding lots of goals, are they? And even though Rodrigo may score, I'm probably not as hot as him as I was last week. What's your thinking on this Tuesday?
There's a lot of options here, isn't there? I think there's going to be a lot of split captaincies. If I was picking any player and I'd like to return the highest points, or I think I'd be on Koulibaly. So those that advised last week that I wouldn't have transferred him out, even if I just brought him in and he'd been sent off. I think Koulibaly plays. We could see a rest for Silva, potentially a shake-up of the Chelsea defence. I'm thinking because they played the majority of the game at the weekend with 10 men and Silva's age and him playing 90 minutes as well.
You struggling at the end as well, wasn't he? You were struggling with a knock at the end, I think, as well, wasn't he, Silva?
Yeah. Brighton have been good defensively, but would you back against Mitrovic scoring? I don't know. I think he's another option. Crystal Palace defender, Anderson or Gehi. If you were wanting to get rid of someone that's injured in your team and you need a captaincy, I think Crystal Palace they sit around about mid in terms of the fixtures coming up, but they go on a fantastic run after the international break. So if it was somebody that was going to be a long-term move for you, I think Gehi or Anderson could be a shout there as well. But yeah, for me, Koulibaly, Sterling would be a good shout. And well, if you've got Cucurella, could do. So I'd have Koulibaly, Mitrovic, and Rodrigo in that order, I think, as my favoured captains. Or Reece James, I'd probably have Reece James in there as well, actually.
I think 3 of the 4 games are very tight, aren't they? So Fulham, Brighton, Palace, Brentford, and Leeds, Everton. Really hard to call a winner, I think, in all 3 of those games. Chelsea, you obviously fancy, as you say, but I thought Southampton actually played pretty well against United. I think they were a bit unlucky. So I fancied them to score. Actually, he did. I fancied them to score. So I think Tuesday may be a bit of a night of tight results, kind of one goal either way. We'll see. On to Wednesday. All the big attackers and big defenders actually all playing on the same night. This is going to be a hell of a night Wednesday. So Bournemouth and Wolves, Man City home to Forest. I mean, goodness me. I was going to take Haaland out for Kane on Sunday, but after his performance, there's no way, because I think the fact he was brought off after 84 minutes, and there's been a lot of chat on social media and things, kind of guessing when he'll play and when he won't play. And the one that makes sense to me the most, which I've seen, it seems quite sensible. So he's going to play in the Champions League, right? 100% he's going to play in the Champions League. But the way the fixtures fall now, home to Forest midweek. They're then away to Villa on the weekend. They then play Sevilla, I think it might be I want to say Tuesday evening, maybe Wednesday evening. And then they have Spurs. Is it Spurs? Spurs on the weekend, I think. And then they have, Dortmund, and then Wolves. So these obviously like kind of 3 or 4 days apart. So the kind of route which makes sense to me the most is for him to play on Wednesday, for him to maybe be rested against Villa on Saturday, for him to then play against Sevilla and Tottenham, because he's definitely playing against Spurs. And then have a rest then potentially against Wolves. So I think Villa and Wolves are the games at risk, but you never know. Still,
it's really strange because City didn't have they've got Alvarez to come in anyway, but they're a team that's used to not playing with number 9 as well. So when they play against anybody, like this would have been roughly their strongest team from last season, right. which is crazy when considering just the dimension of everything's changed. I mean, if I look at the lineups and I see that Haaland's starting, then Haaland's definitely my captain.
100%. Arsenal play Villa. You got to fancy Arsenal attackers to have a good game there, and defenders actually, don't you? And hopefully get. Go on, sorry.
What would you do if you were someone who, I'm thinking of the listeners and some questions that could come out. What if you did Haaland to Kane on Sunday there, thinking there's a good chance that Haaland won't play on Wednesday. Yeah. And you come up and you rock up to Wednesday's games and Haaland starts against Forest. And you could move any one of your players to Haaland with one move. So it's not a budget thing. So like you've got, I guess, Son, Kane, maybe not Jesus, like one of the big defenders. Because they're roughly that same price, like roughly a price that would be if you're not sitting a lot of money in the bank, or Salah's the other one. Would you move to Haaland?
I would do Van Dijk to Haaland captain. I think that, again, I was looking at Liverpool's fixtures: Newcastle, Everton, and Wolves. I think all three teams, Newcastle have obviously looked really good. Scored 3 against Man City. They've got a lot of attacking threat. If they play the similar way that they played against Man City, I think Newcastle will score. I think Liverpool will score more and they'll win, but I think Newcastle will score. And then they've got Everton away, which is going to be, a really, really hard game for Liverpool, I think, just because Everton are really, they're scrapping, aren't they? They're really trying hard. And Wolves are actually playing really well as well. So I would just do it. I just think that game, Man City against Forest, we mentioned it against Bournemouth the other week, but
if you had Son, would you move Son on to Haaland?
I think so. I think so.
If you had Kane and Haaland plays, would you move Kane back to Haaland?
Probably not Kane. I think the Kane gets 90.
And Salah, you wouldn't as well.
No, I would. I'd move on. I'd personally move on Van Dijk and maybe Son. But
what about KDB?
I think that's tough. It's tough to do that. I think I just stick the captain on. The captaincy on KDB. I think personally. How about you? What do you think?
Probably similar tolerance level to you there. I mean,
you can't move in Kane.
I don't know. No, that's what I'm saying. I agree with you. If I had Son, if Son was the person I would move Son on to Haaland and captain Haaland. I don't think I would with Van Dijk. I think that Son I would move on, and maybe that's it. And I still think Salah could. Like he's going to get a hat trick against someone soon. I think.
I agree. I do agree, but City against Forest, like Forest's defensive stats are pretty woeful. Haaland's going to get so many chances. Would you really be surprised if he knocked in 2 or 3 goals in that game? Whereas obviously Salah against Newcastle, ever since the start of the season, Salah had, he hasn't been playing as centrally as usual. Obviously, he missed loads of chances on the weekend. That was just one of those things, just unlucky. But Haaland just gets a chance, he just scores it, and that's the end of it, isn't it? But
So Haaland's ownership's 60%, and in the top 1,000, it's 70%. So there is still a good chunk without him kind of near the top and competing. I'm only posing the question because I think that we might have listeners that are in that 30 or 40%, and if he starts, what would you do in that position?
I couldn't do it to myself. And this again is like, we mentioned this previously, haven't we, about the kind of decisions we make when thinking about future moves. And I think I messaged you, didn't I? I didn't want to put myself into a position on Wednesday where when I got the team sheets, I had to make a panicky move within half an hour to actually decide on what to do, because you can't make the move with an hour to go because you haven't seen the Liverpool lineups. So say Van Dijk doesn't start, it's an obvious move then, right? But you've only got half an hour to make a decision, and it would just kind of ruin my evening, I think. So I didn't want to put myself in that spot. But no, it's a really good question. But I think City against Forest, I mean, even if he comes away like with a 2-pointer, you've got to think in your head. The same as Salah against Newcastle. The same against Salah against Bournemouth. The right sensible move to do would be to captain him, and that's it. And if you don't do it, I think you'll look back, regardless of what happens, and think, why didn't I do it? That's just my personal opinion. It's just one of those no-brainers for me. Arsenal play Villa, could be profitable for Arsenal players. Villa struggling at the moment. West Ham and Spurs. West Ham also struggling. I don't know what's happened to Bowen. He just seems to have gone completely off the boil. Spurs looking good. I do fancy a Spurs win, which, that West Ham and Spurs game normally can be anything. I do fancy Spurs win. I fancy Kane to do well in that fixture as well. and then Liverpool and Newcastle, which could be anything. Any thoughts on those games?
I think Liverpool's going to turn over Newcastle.
I think they will, but I think Newcastle will score.
Like I think it'll be more comfortable than what some people are. I just think with that the way that they played against City was a lot down to how Wilson was playing as well, and with Bruno Guimaraes out as well.
That's fair.
He's been confirmed out for a couple of games that it just upsets him a bit too much. I'm not doing Newcastle discredit. I think they've been excellent this season thus far.
I think they're a fair point. I wonder if Isaac makes his debut ahead of Wood. And then Wednesday's interesting because it's a crazy night of football. That could be. It's probably City, Arsenal, and Spurs are playing. They're three real informed teams are playing three real out of form teams, aren't they? Yeah. So it could be, and then Liverpool against Newcastle.
If Haaland doesn't start. No, so I'm going the opposite way now.
Yeah, good question.
If Haaland doesn't start, who's your favoured captain?
I have to go Salah, I think. I don't know.
I mean, there's an argument for Kane. There's an argument for Kane as well, right? But I think.
But then just historically, Liverpool at home, just come off the back of a 9-0. Salah didn't get any points, but he should have. Right, his XG was like 1.5 in one game, which is crazy. He should have got something. So yeah, I think that. You the same?
I think so.
Thursday, Leicester Man United. So yeah, at the moment, so Ndidi was looking all right, but he I don't think he started, did he? Was it on the weekend or last weekend? 6.9.
Yeah. They're all taking turns getting rotated in that Leicester team, aren't they?
They
are.
It's
just a bit of a mess just now. I mean, if Maddison plays and he's staying, I still think Maddison's a good long term shout if you're looking to make the move. Tielemans was out as well, but again, if he's in the team, you think that he's not going to get sold, surely, or it doesn't give Leicester enough time to sign somebody else to replace him anyway. They might use the Fofana money and get their replacements in early, and then make a decision on Tielemans prior to then. And I've got a feeling that you'll come into matchday squad on Thursday, and there'll be no Tielemans. If I was to guess which side of it.
The thing is that then affects the rest of the team, right? In terms, he's one of their better players, and Man United, you're still quite not sure what you're going to get at you. If you look at them now, they seem to have tightened up at the back. Martinez looks really, really good.
As soon as Casemiro starts, you think like that must, like, you'd have to drop some woeful performances not to retain his place.
But is it worth? I think he's 7.6, and people are tempted. I do understand that, but 7.6, is it worth bringing in someone just for a captaincy, just for someone who may get pass or tackle bonus?
Well, I was thinking more again if it was Bruno Guimaraes and was out longer. I'm only using him as the example in all of these because we know he's injured. Anybody that gets injured midweek that falls into that category, the same applies to them in my eyes. That if you're taking someone else that you know's out, or Matip's back in training, and I know some people brought in Joe Gomez, who's done 14 points in 2 games, so good return from him. Perhaps Matip comes in against Newcastle, and that's then the dead asset. And I could see the value in doing it under those circumstances. I wouldn't rip up my team to do it.
And the other fairly obvious option is Leicester do have a 3-for-1 over Arsenal. And Jesus is obviously a really popular pick. Maddison is roughly the same price. So Jesus and Maddison. Now looking at the Sunday, what's interesting about the Sunday, I'm not sure if I've actually got this on the next. We'll just move on.
Yeah, you do.
Move on to the next slide. So if you look at the Saturday at the moment on the Sky site, Chelsea and West Ham is down for 1 in the morning, which is because it's been rearranged from Sunday the 4th to the Saturday, but they haven't got a time for it yet due to Chelsea playing on the Tuesday in the Champions League. Now, it does probably mean that Jesus, that then leaves Jesus as the most popular captain away to Man United. And again, we probably haven't seen enough of United yet. They've looked solid in their last 2 games, or fairly solid, it's fair to say. But have they looked solid enough to do Jesus and Maddison? Even if Maddison scores and you get some points on Thursday, and maybe even get some kind of return in the other 2 games, is it potentially worth missing out for that Jesus, for the sake that Jesus captaincy against United, and the ownership of the player taken into account for the cost of 2 transfers? I'm not so sure.
I would say something that might come across as semi-controversial, right? But has Jesus proven that he's a good Sky Fantasy asset? His goals have all come in that game against Leicester.
Yeah,
where he scored 2 and assisted 2. He's played really, really well. I'm not saying he's not played well, and pundits have been waxing lyrical about him, but because his performances have been great. But is he a great fantasy asset that you have to have him on a double game day where you would have coverage because you'd have the Leicester player that you brought in, and that's in that change scenario? They're away to Brighton, so that's tough. Like a tough game. I totally understand that. But you've gained the captaincy on the game against Man United. Is he proven himself to be that great a fantasy asset for Arsenal yet that you couldn't miss him away to Man United in a double game match day?
I take your point. So obviously, he was superb in the second game. He looked really lively in the first game, and he had a goal disallowed against Bournemouth as well. Like a hair's breadth offside. In the third game, also played really well. I take your point, and I can't see this United defence, especially with Martinez, the way he is capitulating like they would in the past, like Maguire. It's the 2 transfers thing, right? Because immediately after, they're home to Everton on Sunday the 11th, and they got Brentford on Sunday the 18th. If there were captaincies to kind of oppose it, then I get it. Actually, looking at the fixtures as well,
I was going to say less. I think you mentioned this on pod last week. I think maybe that Leicester's fixtures aren't that bad. So for me, I don't know that it'd be a 3 for. So for me, it's not necessarily a 3 for 1. It's 2 moves for daisy chain around. Yeah, you hold Maddison's the standout. So if you hold Maddison long term, and then you move somebody else back onto Jesus for the Everton game. I mean, I'd get Ian Parent's planner out and have a look at
Absolutely.
it. I just don't think on that Sunday that it's as scary not going in with Jesus as perhaps is perceived by how well Jesus has played rather than what he's returned from fantasy perspective.
I think that's fair. And, off the back of that then, Leicester, as you say, so they have Brighton on the Sunday, they're then home to Villa the following Saturday, which is a really, really nice fixture. And then after that, away to Spurs going to be tough. They're then home to Forest, which is also single game day, I believe, or close to. Then they have Bournemouth, then home to Palace, home to Leeds. So you're right there. So there could be a thing where you move off Jesus and then maybe do some kind of daisy chain back onto Jesus if you wanted. But again, Jesus home to Everton on Sunday the 11th and then away to Brentford. They then run into Spurs and Liverpool and City in 3 of the next 4. So it could be you actually decide to come off Jesus because you're probably not going to captain him in many of the games.
So that's my loose way of getting Cancelo back. I think something around there, like because I noticed that Everton run way into the future looks pretty grim over 4 games. And as I say, I just Jesus has done well for his 9.5 million price tag, but well only really because of that Leicester game. Because if you look at the other fantasy returns in isolation, it's not in good fixture. Well, maybe Crystal Palace away is not a great fixture, but the other 2 were good fixtures, right? Bournemouth away, considering how they're playing, and Fulham at home. You'd have expected a top-tier striker to be returning.
The only issue is on that Sunday the 11th, the Everton game, he's going to be very likely the overwhelming captain that day.
Yeah, but you can. Yeah, so yeah. Which game day is that? Yeah, so this is what I mean about coming back off somebody that played on the on the Saturday though.
Doing the daisy chain, yeah. Okay,
that's
fair. Yeah, that's fair. Let's have a look ahead then to game week 5. So Chelsea and West Ham, the the time of the match hasn't been confirmed yet, though it will be played on Saturday, the 3rd of September. It doesn't look like Fofana is going to play. I don't think he's definitely going to play. Well, he hasn't had his medical yet, so he's not going to play tomorrow night. He may be available for the weekend potentially, but he's having his. I think he's having a medical in America. I read so.
He's having his second. Yeah, he's having this. He's passed the first part of his medical, and he's now on the second part.
Okay, so
I seen someone put on Twitter, and then someone said, "What does this mean?" Is it? Well, it means that. What does it mean, second medical? And it's like, well, it's not his first because he's passed his first, so he's on to the next one. I don't know.
Yeah. So Everton and Liverpool, the early game, as we say, and then Wolves, Southampton, Spurs and Fulham, which is another reason why I brought in Kane as well, because I was on an hour about Kane yesterday, but I looked at that game as well and flipping heck, you just can't. I can't go into these games without these players. It just kind of makes me nervous in the mornings of these matches.
So Son's going to miss one of those 2 games, isn't he?
Do you think?
Yeah, I think.
Charlison, is it?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
Forest and Bournemouth, Newcastle and Palace, Brentford and Leeds, and then Villa and Man City. Tough for captaincy, I think. I think I prefer Kane. What are you? What's your thinking?
Yeah, what would be interesting is if Kane plays 90 against West Ham. There's going to be a lot of speculation and a lot of people guessing based on how many minutes and when players are getting taken off over the next few games. I think if Kane comes off against West Ham, gets a bit of a rest, I think that would cement Kane as captain for me on Saturday. I think if he plays 90 and depending how other minutes other people play, that I might reconsider.
Yeah.
In isolation, I would pick Kane from that fixture list. Well, if I knew Haaland was going to play, I would pick Haaland as well. But if he plays against Forest and then if he gets rested against Forest, I think maybe I pick Haaland against Villa.
Brighton then play Leicester. So obviously we talked about bringing in a Leicester asset. Away to Brighton is a tough game as well. At the moment, that's a really hard game. Especially if Leicester sell a player or two, they're likely going to be without Fofana. They could be without Tielemans, as we mentioned. Maybe even Maddison, though. I'd be surprised if he left. That would be a crapper, bringing him early and get sold before the match. That'd be the first time that's probably ever happened. You bring in a player and then they're not actually playing for their team by the time it kicks off. And then Man United versus Arsenal. If you do bring in a Leicester or Man United player on Thursday, you will get the captaincy option anyway on Sunday the 4th. But you would guess Jesus is going to be a popular pick. Again, it may depend how United play on Thursday. If Leicester turn Man United over, if United go back to their old ways, Jesus looks a really good option. So it's intriguing. I think this is why as well, a reason why I'm trying to be hold off transfers is because I really feel there's so much speculation at the moment still around lots of transfers that I think there's still a lot of moves that are going to be done. I think there's going to be a couple of high profile ones that we don't yet know about. Apparently United is still looking to bring in 2 or 3 players, like Chelsea interested in Zaha, for example. I mean, if he goes into that team and nails a place, $8.5 million midfielder, flipping heck, that is a hell of an option. So I think this is why it's worth kind of holding off a little bit. So I think with all that in mind, thinking about it, I'm probably going to hold off Jesus to a Leicester player because I just think that there could be benefit of, even if you say a benefit of 20 points, even 30 points off 2 transfers, which you would say, yep, great stuff. But that is very, very best case scenario, I think, for a Leicester player. That is best case. Worst case, you come off worse. And that would just be a nightmare, right, for a couple of transfers. So I take your point about Jesus, but I think combined the 2 captaincies, this one and the Everton one on Sunday the 11th, I see limited upside personally. I know Maddison, has he got returns? There's 6 of his last 7 games, something like that. He is a wonderful player, but Leicester are a team in a bit of a disarray at the moment in terms of their team. So, yeah, any thoughts on the Sunday?
No, I mean, yeah, I'm definitely not suggesting that I wouldn't captain Jesus if I still held him. And as I said at the start of the pod, I'm very tempted not to do the Leicester Man United player as well. Go for the option. So yeah, I would captain Jesus if I had free reign. If I could pick any player that I think is going to score well on that game day, Bruno Fernandes. I think if I was
Oh.
picking anybody, especially if Ronaldo's not playing in the team, I just think he's going to come out of his come back into his zone.
I quite like the look of, it could be a good hop-on point there. So earlier, we mentioned to me about Gross potentially, maybe even, Welbeck, Trossard, Brighton defender, Sanchez. Brighton just look really good options at the moment, don't they? And if you haven't got on this Tuesday, which is probably a better hop-on point, I think they're way to Fulham, aren't they? You can hop on there maybe, but Brighton look superb this season. They're going to give anyone a game who they play at the moment. Okay, thank you, Paul. Really good stuff there. Hopefully, we've answered the vast majority of the questions, which again, we've had a lot of questions. At Sky Player and FPL, Paul, first question, are you going to look at the FF Hub members table with a wink? So we haven't put the leagues up yet because it is a bit early, Paul, but if you are top, which it sounds like you are, then very, very well played indeed. Nice one, Paul. Ian Parrin, have the fixture changes enforced by the UCL group stage schedule change your plans at all? Any thoughts about that, Paul? I think the key sort of takeaway from me is Spurs group looks really, really good, doesn't it? And I think that suits Spurs. Obviously I expect Kane to play the majority of minutes anyway, but if they can get an early lead in a few of those games, which I think they will, and bring him off early, I think it does help Spurs in terms of him getting more minutes in the Premier League.
Yeah, and I thought about it on the scheduling of days on Saturdays and Sundays as well. Like, who'd be playing on Saturdays and Sundays? And because they're the 4 best teams in the league, and 2 of them will play on a Tuesday, and 2 of them will play on the Wednesday. It means the Saturday-Sunday rotation means that you should always that you're likely always to have one of the big hitters on one of the days and one of the big hitters on others. So, not directly. If any of them changes with the plan, I had a loose plan about removing Jesus and perhaps getting a premium defender and further down the line. I'll just check that the days hadn't changed from that.
And just in terms of United and Arsenal, obviously going to be playing on Sundays now for the vast majority of their matches until the overhaul because of this. Obviously, Arsenal is pretty easy to look at their best assets. We haven't really mentioned the best United assets. If they do improve, we mentioned Casemiro. Rashford has been kind of mooted once or twice. You mentioned Bruno earlier, but if you had to pick at the moment your best United captaincy pick, bear in mind their fixtures do pick up a lot as well in a bit. Have you got any thoughts on a United player?
As I say, I think Bruno will come in and do well on like seemingly on pens and set pieces, and I don't know if it's a confidence thing when Ronaldo's playing in the same team, because he doesn't play. I've never seen him play particularly well for Portugal either. Even when Portugal's been relatively successful in the recent past. So yeah, for me, he is at the top end of the budget, but then that makes him more appealing because other people won't go there because of his price as well.
Yeah, okay. Tom Hartnell, I've done Haaland to Kane now. I'm planning to hold. Feels so risky to do, given Haaland being on fire. Is the hokey cokey finish now? Well, this was what we were all debating on Sunday morning as we were fiddling in our beds. Was exactly this, and this is the reason why I've taken out Van Dijk. And it's a mental thing as well, right? I just didn't want to go into all these game days, like Kane at home to Fulham Saturday, Haaland home to Forest on Wednesday, Salah playing, just like really good fixtures. I couldn't do it to myself, so that's why I've done it. In terms of hokey cokey, so it sounds like Tom is just gonna leave Haaland. Is the hokey cokey finished now? He says. I can see it going on and on. In all honesty, because after this run where they all play each other, they're all gonna alternate between game days, aren't they? So
yeah,
I think my plan until overhaul is just to try and keep the majority of my team as rock solid as possible. I mean, as stationary as possible, and then rotate between these strikers just to maximise the captaincies. I think Ian mentioned earlier in the chat, it was a really good point that 55% of points, of Sky points, come from captaincy points over a season, which is crazy. So it just goes to show how important it is to get the captaincy right, or at least cover the highly owned captaincies, obviously, which you do, Paul. So for me, I think that's how I'm planning on playing until overhaul. What do you think?
Yeah, I think something similar. And you're in exactly the same point as where we were a couple of weeks ago. So you're either going premium and spreading and like losing a big hitter, or spreading the funds around, or picking up your second enabler, or you using so you use transfers to get into that formation, or you use transfers to continue to do it, or you take the gamble of not owning one of them. But there's going to come a point in the season where one of the big strikers goes through a spell of not returning. I think that's inevitable. Whereas just now, it just feels like every move that you're making is warranted because you're getting the return, but there's shortly going to become a time where that's not going to happen as well.
So just to confirm, after Saturday the 10th of September, City, Liverpool and Tottenham don't all play on the same game day again until the overhaul. So you can then split up the freemium. One thing to maybe bear in mind, because I was thinking about this the other day, if you have got 5 at the back and you're planning on doing a rotation between Salah, Haaland and Kane, is you can't play a 5-2-3. So you may want to consider potentially going 4 at the back instead of 5 at the back if you do want to play that game. I think that's right. Is that, Paul? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah, because I was looking on the weekend about taking.
You mean Salah can't be part of that rotation because he's locked into the midfield spot?
Yes. So you're going to you're going to want to play 4-4-2. I think is the point I'm trying to make, which can then turn to a 4-3-3, which can then go back to a 4-4-2 if you want Salah to be part of the rotation. If you're happy for Salah not to be part of the rotation and just rotate between Haaland and Kane, then you can do whatever you want. But there will be opportunities potentially to come off, off Salah, for example, for 2-for-1s and things like that. Where you may want to. So it's just worth bearing that in mind when you're planning out until overhaul. Ben Sky FF, thoughts on Tony? Might bring him in for Bowen midweek. Barnes another option. I think I prefer Mitrovic to Tony, in all honesty. I'm thinking Paul on Tony. He is good.
Yeah,
I do like him, but I prefer Mitrovic personally.
Yeah, I just, for me, those strikers, now that they've lost the man of the match points for their captaincy, I just don't think they've got as much appeal as what they had before.
Agree. Steve Wright has gone KDB over Haaland. At what point do I admit defeat and change to Haaland? Tough one on the weekend. Tough one. I don't know. I haven't got an answer. It's really tough.
If Haaland starts over KDB midweek, then there's a freebie. If it's a straight swap, maybe I would do it. I don't know. I'm not sure.
It's really tough.
Sure. I read the questions before I came online. I thought I had an answer to them all as well, and I forgot. Maybe I forgot about that one.
I think I'm not sure I'd do the swap. I think I'd go someone else to Haaland because, especially on Forest on Wednesday, you don't want to be taking out De Bruyne against Forest.
But the problem is when you're saying who else would you take out, I'm guessing the options are Salah and Kane.
Or Van Dijk or Cancelo. So I would just look at who you're not going to captain. So Van Dijk, for example.
So a couple of things. If you're thinking about doing it anyway, is that if you're like, are you going to have massive regret if KDB outscores them, or are you someone that can just take that on the chin and move on? And with the view of you're going to hold Haaland long term anyway, then I would do it. If you couldn't, I think I would just hold.
Yeah, I agree. But I don't think I would swap him. That's just asking for pain. That is, we've all done that in the past, right? and they're the ones that hurt the most. When you take a player out when they're home against the worst team in the league, and they were the best players in the league, it's just asking for trouble, right? Because on another day, Haaland gets nothing, and De Bruyne gets a goal and assist.
Well, he's already done it. Well, he's already done it earlier on this season as well, hasn't he?
Yeah. Luke Notley has had Rice from the start to cover a future single versus Bournemouth. Flip neck, Luke. That was forward planning. Would you move him to Barnes on Thursday? A captaining versus Forest as well.
With Harvey Barnes, I wouldn't guarantee that he'll play that Forest game. So if he was, but the good thing with that Forest game is that that's the last match day on that game week as well. So you would be able to pick up another player. I don't like Rice necessarily as a Sky Fantasy asset, so I wouldn't. I think I would move him on to, if Casemiro started, and maybe I think I'd move him on to Casemiro rather than Barnes. He's a little bit cheaper as well.
I think that should be the name of the podcast. I don't like Rice. I like that. In your dreams, ask
too much carbs for us keto
exactly
dieters. Yeah.
Exactly. In your dreams, ask over the next 4 or 5 weeks, how would you rank Salah, Kane, and Haaland considering form, fixtures, and predicted minutes? God, what a question that is. I think for me, I'm not going to rank them because I can't. But what I would say is, I think all three of them are head and shoulders above most other players. And this is why I've gone for all three. Is like I can't choose between them. I think Haaland probably plays less minutes, but has insane fixtures when he does play against Forest, for example. If you captain Haaland against Forest and he bangs in 2 or 3, it's like 40 points. And then, but even if he's rested then on the weekend, it doesn't matter. He's already got the points. I would probably then say personally Kane, because they've got Fulham on Saturday as well as playing well as having good fixtures. But Salah's got really good fixtures as well. He's just a little bit off form, isn't he? So I would just say all three of them. I wouldn't be without any of them.
I'd rate them Kane, Salah, and then Haaland, because for me, nobody at Spurs rivals Kane's output. So he's standalone. I think with Salah and Haaland, that if I rocked up to a game day where I was expecting to captain them, and they didn't play, or I wasn't sure that they were going to play, that I would be okay with captaining Cancelo or Van Dijk. And the fact that Salah's a midfielder and that I was struggling to fill midfield spots, that I would rank Salah slightly higher, which I know contradicts the fact that Haaland's out front in terms of top goal scoring overall, but top point scoring overall. But it'd be very close between the three. And I think it was similar thinking that I had to you at the weekend is why I made that move as well.
Dale Turner, is it worth moving Johnson on and bringing in Henderson to cover single game day? We touched on this earlier, but Forest fixtures are pretty good. I would only move Johnson on. So I've got enough money to do Johnson to Fofana. But I also do wonder whether Johnson could outscore Fofana, or at least keep up with him in terms of not having to spend a transfer over the next 3 or 4 games. So Forest's games. So I expect, I do expect Johnson to play the next 2 if Fofana might not. But after that, so Forest home to Bournemouth, away to Leeds, home to Fulham, away to Leicester, home to Villa are the next 5 games. They're really nice games. So I'd probably wait and see how he performs against Bournemouth on the weekend, because obviously if he knocks in a goal or gets a goal and assist against Bournemouth on the weekend, you're then going to want to hold him. So I would just say, as we kind of always do, is leave your transfers till the last possible minute, and then if you really feel you want to do it. But I do think Henderson is probably the best captaincy option, or at least the best Forest one, because obviously you've got Rodrigo and Mitrovic who are playing against them. So
Maddison,
yeah. So I think Henderson is the best Forest option, though I do think Johnson could do something, over the next few games there. One for you, Paul. Michael Haaland, good week for Michael with 2 transfers used. Brought in Collins for Zinchenko. Brighton Newcastle fan, so not as disheartening. Sat at 5k rank with 3 transfers. Oh, sorry, it's not a question, comment. Nice one, Michael. Very well played. And Gordon Bell asks around Casemiro. So we've already touched on Casemiro. Paul, you think he could be, he could be a good option? I do think he could be a good option, but I just think I personally want to see him a little bit more. I think he could be an immense option for tackle and passes. I think he could be really, really good, but just want to see a little bit more. And obviously United play in Europa League as well, so they got that to consider as well. Julian Wardle have decided on big at the front for the medium term. Is this the way others are thinking? Compromised a bit at the back. Definitely what Paul and I have done. And he's thinking of skipping Thursday. Probably what I'm doing. Not sure about you, Paul, but yeah, I think at the moment it's perfectly viable, considering they all play at on the same game day for the next 3 game days. After that, I think you can split them again. Paul, anything to add? SkyFF Wilson says around getting Haaland, Kane, Jesus, and Salah. Doesn't have Kane. Does he bite the bullet and get him in, even if it doesn't mean a fixture game? So you ranked Kane at the top, didn't you, of those? Would you bite the bullet to get him
in? Not for any of the others on Wednesday, knowing that you're probably not going to captain Kane anyway.
No, that's fair. And Mark Williamson, are we anywhere near working out the points value of a transfer? How many points would you pay for 5 extra transfers? About half a Fergi in old money. What do you think, mate, about the value of a transfer at the moment?
I think I've got less than you. I think I've got around about 10. But the problem is that we had 12 to 15 in our heads, or 15 previously, but there was never any mathematical
exactly
conclusion that was ever drawn from that. It was just a collection of people that played the game for a long time, thinking about how many moves that they do in this situation and what would they be happy with and what would they not be happy with. So it's more very much subjective. But if I was to put value on a transfer just now, I think I'd have it about 10 points.
I've been thinking about this a bit more because obviously I did Romero to Kamara to enable Kane, but I didn't really take into account the Romero to Kamara value when doing it. Now, I didn't just do it because of that. I was looking for an enabler anyway. Obviously, Romero's injured. He's an easy kind of move, especially with their fixtures, but I'm not so sure.
It's hard to quantify. It's hard to quantify exactly. in those situations.
But it's also hard to quantify because if over that period of 3 for 1, you get your 10-point surplus, over the next 2 or 3 fixtures, if it swings back the other way, it's just negligible or even nothing. I think it's hard to quantify.
It's all butterfly effect anyway, though, right? Because once you've made that move, if something opened up for you, you're going to have different budget, perhaps, or a different formation to do the move that you might have done beforehand. And you might have a different way of thinking. So it's always going to chain out. I think the question was phrased well because right now, if you were to get 5 more transfers, how much would you be willing to knock off your points total to get them? 50 for me sounds about right. I actually think I think I wouldn't do it. Oh, see, I wouldn't. I don't know that I would do that. I don't even know that I would do that much at this stage.
Well, that's because
maybe it demoralise me more, and that would make more rash decisions. Perhaps.
Deep.
I think I'm level. Oh, yeah. I think I'm level-headed, and I think I would make plays. But again, butterfly effect. Looking at transfer values, looking at how other engaged managers or mini league competitors against me are performing. Maybe I would start playing slightly different as well. So,
but I also think if you look at the transfers we made so far, that like for me, the move to Kane, the move to Haaland, the move to Kane, they've all yielded really, really good points. So I may be a bit biased at the moment, thinking, well, yeah, I should be looking at 20 points every transfer because that's what I've got so far. But obviously, that's not really the case going forward. So, I still think it's close to 15. Personally, I don't think that if I had to make 2 So here's the example, right? So Maddison and Jesus, if I had a 20-point surplus, but I had to use 2 transfers, I don't think I'd take that. I wouldn't be happy with that. I think close to 30 for me.
If I said to you right now, here's 5 transfers, I'll knock 70 points off your total. Would you take the transfers?
Probably not, but because I've scored well. But yeah, no, it's a good conversation. But I don't think I would take 20 points for 2 transfers. I think it would be close to between 25 and 30 for me to say, do you know what? Yeah, that's really paid off. And as you say, it is a butterfly effect because it kind of it chains on. But yeah, I still think it's a little bit more, which is why I'm going to beat you this year. Last couple of questions. Steve Cheek, what team defense or defender is the most trustworthy? Goals being shipped everywhere. Passing to it 1 week, not the next. Seems like Spurs defense is the more reliable at the moment.
Liverpool for me.
Liverpool have
Van
got
Dijk, Van Dijk's just returned passing bonus for 4 out of 4 games. So although he's conceded in those games, he's sitting like 10th overall-ish on the overall points board. I think Liverpool. I think Liverpool, based on the back 4 being more obvious, because I'd always have City up there as well. But when Laporte comes back, are they going to revert back to that same back 4 that played most of last season? I'm not sure.
And final question, at Everyday says, sitting on Lewis O'Brien, how to get him out? I'm not sure how much he is. Was he 6 points?
6.5, 6 points, something like that. Well, I don't know what your team is, but if you've not got Palhinha, I'd get Palhinha. If you've not got Palhinha and you really want rid of him, then I would get Kamara. And again, if you don't want him, I think Gibbs White will do well. I know a lot of people were keen to get him out, but I think for his value, he'd be a set and forget for me. He's not going to he's going to go through streaks of 2 points. That's okay for in the 6.5 million bracket. I don't like that in the 8 million bracket where he gets the 2-2-2-10, 2-2-15. But I think that if he did return that, then at 6.5 million, I think he's good value.
I think if you can stretch, and you probably can't, if formation allows, if you get to Mitrovic, I think that would be a hell of an upgrade, but assuming you haven't got a spare million hanging around. Superb. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone, as usual, for watching live, listening in, watching back, and everything else. Thank you for all your continued support and appreciation. It is really much appreciated by us. And thank you so much, Paul. Where can people find you?
On Twitter at Paul McAnulty 1, so it's MCANULTY.
And my handle is at FFH_Fergi. So if you like what you watched, please press the like button. We've only had 22 likes. There's been over 100 people watching for the whole stream. Come on, press like. And remember to subscribe if you haven't, to the bottom right corner of the screen. If you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast. Give us 5 stars and leave some comments. It would be much appreciated. Again, it really does help us. I know I ask this every week, but I only ask because it really does help us, kind of get more views, get more interaction. So please do that. We will be back next Monday reviewing the weekend's action and looking ahead to Sky Game Week 6. We will be recording a Nip and a Half podcast straight after this. If you haven't listened to that, I'm not sure if it's listed on Apple yet. It's definitely on Spotify. Search for Nip and a Half podcast. Paul and I every week just spend about half an hour discussing all 4 fantasy formats at a very, very kind of high level and informal way. Have a great week and goodbye for now.